So welcome to Wealth Revolution, the podcast that breaks free from the old financial systems and explores the new economy, conscious wealth and personal freedom. I'm your host, Luke Alford, and today we have a special guest joining us. And yeah, this guest I've worked with for some time. We spent some time in Miami together. I've known him for a while. His name's Muellegger, and Alan's an emotional fitness trainer who helps people condition their emotions and release and express their emotions. And he's got a decade of experience in this area. And you might be asking, how is this relevant to financial wealth? And for me, really, in this episode, it really connects around developing a wealth consciousness mindset. You cannot grow finance, in my opinion, without healthy relationships to your emotions. And you need to be healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally. So yeah, I'm going to bring Alan into the room and let him introduce himself, and we'll get this chat going. Looking forward to doing it. This is a new system to me, so let me get it right.
It's all good.
I think you'll be in a minute. Got you, there you are. Yeah, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate you coming on and for this chat. And far away, yeah, if you let us know your story and how you got into being an emotional trainer.
Yeah, man. So I really appreciate you having me in here. It's really, honestly, it's an honor, and I feel blessed to be able to share whatever I have in this area to help people to build the wealth that they build. And I just acknowledge you for being that person that helps people build wealth in a new and really powerful way. So for myself, emotional fitness training, this has been something I've been doing. I've been doing it without knowing I was doing it for the last 10 years. It kind of kicked off and started when I was working in a sales organization that was selling knives door to door. And this sounds like a very interesting thing to do door to door, but that's what I was doing here in the States. And I saw the opportunity to be a manager there as something I really wanted to do, because I saw that when people spoke, when they were being speakers in that organization, they were making a huge difference. It's like, I could make a huge difference myself in my own life by selling a whole bunch of knives, but if I could help a whole bunch of people do it, then the impact of that was expanding. And so I got into that business, and I ran an office for 2 years in a row, and I wasn't doing that great. I was kind of mediocre. I was wanting to be the best in that company. I wanted to be number one, but I kept missing the mark. And then I kind of I got obsessively hungry to be number one. I was like, I'm going to be number one no matter what it takes, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And so I started studying all of the books on leadership and sales and attending all these conferences and going to all these events. And I just set out to arm myself with all the best information I could with how to actually lead people to become their absolute best. And somewhere along the line, in the third year that I was a manager, I began to realize that there were these moments in time where the people I was working with experienced peak levels of discomfort. And in those peak levels of discomfort, whether it was making their first phone call or asking for the order or whatever it was, their greatest insecurities would come to the surface. And I realized that if I could work with their greatest insecurities and help them overcome them, it all of a sudden made them significantly better at their job. They were crushing the work, and our office ended up being the number one office in the nation. And on average, the reps in our office sold 3 times more than any other rep in the nation. So we weren't just crushing it in terms of the overall numbers per representative, we were crushing it as well. So I was like, okay, this is something I want to do. And then when I got higher up in that company and I started to hear kind of like how decisions were made behind closed doors, I was like, okay, this isn't the place I want to be in. It's not making the cut, no pun intended. And then so I began to work in other companies, other spaces, but all the while I was always focusing on how do I work with people's emotions to help them work at their absolute best, to where now it's become a full-time profession that I do. Speaking on stages or facilitating one-on-one coaching doesn't matter to me. It's like I really value, appreciate, and aspire to help people really harness the power of their emotions.
Love it. Yeah, that's a great story. And it really shows how, that increased sales just by focusing on that area, just the emotions, Yeah, amazing. So yeah, I've got a bunch of questions around my sort of framework, which is what we call the Wealth Rewired, which is going to be a workshop, and you can join this on the YouTube channel. It's a free workshop all about finance. It covers a lot of areas, but I'm going to ask you a few questions on that and see how we're going. The main area will be the wealth consciousness, which I believe is the mindset area anyway. But we've got a few good questions in between. So I'm just going to pull up the first one, which is the truth about the current system. And we're going to kind of get into that and then ask you a couple of questions on that. I mean, for me, I feel the current financial system itself is really broken. The money printer's out of control. The inflation rates, people just can't keep up with them. You know, unless they can keep in the right investments and keep the money flowing in the right way, they're losing, they're paying this hidden tax year on year out. And the governments that are in control and the wealthy 0.1%, these old money billionaires are running the system. The benefit, it only really benefits them, and they're getting richer and richer. It's becoming harder and harder for these new leaders to thrive and grow. And what these old leaders push is more control and what I like to call like an old money consciousness, an old way of thinking. And I think it really creates like a consciousness of fear and power over people. And that's what really needs to change. You know, we've seen this evolution up through the years. We had, well, especially in Britain, we had kings and queens rule in, and then we said that ain't good enough and we moved it to governments. I think now the government's becoming outdated, and we're starting to think in a new way. This is what I'm excited about. You know, we've got to break out this financial matrix and find new ways. And I guess one of the questions I'd like to ask first is, when someone hears these words, it just creates a lot of fear, like inflation and the economy's going to collapse, and quantitative easing, quantitative tightening, money's not spending as well, nobody knows where to put the money. How can people, you know, handle those emotions and regulate them, and how can we, you know, act wisely instead of reactively, I guess?
Yeah, that's a super good question. It really starts with first and foremost, like people validating that emotional intelligence and emotional fitness is no longer optional. So in the world that we're coming in, I mean, I know that you see this all the time, but the world is not going to get easier to be in the next 5 years. There is only going to be more challenges, especially with the rise of AI and like companies beginning to quite literally replace human beings with robots and with computer systems. Like the workforce is only going to shrink while money is getting easier to be made for the people on top. It's going to be a whole thing, and there's going to be a big correction in the world around this. And so, truthfully, if someone wants to make it through this, we can no longer afford to ignore the emotional system. So I would say step one is really acknowledging that our emotions play a massive role in decisions that we make, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And frankly, if we're not validating our emotional system, it's driving our actions, whether we want it to or not. So that's kind of number one. But to actually deal with the emotions, you know, it's funny. Like people will ask for different tips and tricks. Like, what's the formula for it? I don't necessarily have a huge one-stop shop formula, but I do have a few things that for me I do with myself, that I teach my clients, that I teach in audiences, that are designed to get people at the very least aware of and connected to their emotional system. So the very first thing, if we ever notice any type of powerful emotional reaction, and what is an emotional reaction? It's where the heart rate begins to increase, the throat begins to tighten, maybe your back will start to sweat. It's where your body is starting to do something, and how most of us would interpret this change in our physiology would be an experience of panic, anxiety, stress, worry, doubt, fear, etc. When any of this comes up, the body is, by extension, having an experience of, I am going to die. Now, the likelihood that you're actually going to die is very low, but that's what's happening to the body. And so in order for us to be able to attend to this, there's a strategy that I use, or a tool that I use, that I call an anchoring breath. And an anchoring breath is simply an intentionally slow inhale through the nose and an intentionally slow exhale through the mouth. And when I say intentionally slow, I mean like 10 seconds or like 15 seconds, like doing it very, very slowly. The reason being is that when you begin to create a very consistent, very slow inhale, exhale pattern like that, in the nose, out the mouth, 15 seconds in, 15 seconds out, you're going to notice the contrast between the consistency of your breath and the intensity of your body. By giving your subconscious mind and conscious mind a consistent focus on a breathing pattern, It enables you to simply be with what is there without that which is there taking over. So that to me is always tool number one in regulating emotions, is creating that anchoring breath, intentionally slow in, intentionally slow out, and doing that as long as necessary for the emotional experience to pass or to process. After that, so awareness is number one, anchoring breath number two, and then number three is after that, one of the most effective emotional processing tools that we have as human beings is our voice. So it's, especially in Western culture, and I know in British culture and American culture, it's not customary to make loud sounds. Everyone's got to be quiet and have to be in line all the time. And so, but the truth is that making noise, making sound with the voice is one of the most effective ways to regulate our nervous system. So as an example, if I am feeling very anxious, okay, big part of what my system is looking for in that moment, it's looking to express, X out, press, push, to push out. It wants to push out that anxiety. And so one way that we can do that is we can, into a pillow or whatever it is, we can make a sound that matches the sensation of anxiety inside of our body. By doing this, it's kind of the same way, like if a child was crying in the corner, if there was a child that was crying in the corner and I just ignored them and I didn't pay any attention to them, they're probably going to cry more. Or if I go over to them and I'm like, why are you crying? Stop crying. They're probably going to cry even more from that. However, if I kneel down on the child's level, I look at them right in the eye and I say, hey, what's going on, man? Are you okay? And I just spend time with them and I allow them to be seen and heard by me, it's likely that they're going to stop crying or that their emotion is going to complete. So the same thing happens with our voice. Just as we can kneel down on our knee to go eye to eye with a crying child in the corner to help them feel seen, heard, understood, by using our voice to express the emotion that we feel inside of our body also helps our body feel seen, heard, understood. It's like, oh, I'm allowed to express this. I'm allowed to get it out. And once it's out, it's not going to come back. It quite literally, it's a buildup of energy inside of the body. And when you make that sound of what it sounds like to be anxious, afraid, angry, fearful, whatever it is, it comes out of the system and lets you be more regulated. So those are some ways that I would, just off the top of my head, ways to begin to address our reactions, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like the first step is really to become present in your body and allow the emotions to flow, and then express and release the emotions. To, I guess, the releasing helps. Yeah, it's I like what you said about the world increasing in AI as well, because that's one of the things we can't replicate with AI. We're human and we have emotions, and AI don't have this, and it's going to become more and more important, this kind of work. And I love that. I think I'll move straight into the next section because I think we covered a lot there, and there's lots to go. But let's go on to the second section, which is, this section for me is, we've talked about the truth about the current system. It's causing a lot of stress, but what I believe in is any change is stressful, even if it's good change. And this new economy and the future of money is advancing pretty fast at the minute. And coming back to my slide, I'm still navigating this at the minute, but right now I believe that we're going through this kind of revolution. I'm heavily into crypto, as you know. And I think we're going to really change the way we exchange value in the future. These governments and countries are starting to understand this now, and the world leaders are getting into it. And I think it's going to really rewrite the rules, especially with AI combined. AI and crypto will play a big part in this. And like I said, any change is stressful. It don't matter, if it's good change, it feels stressful to people because people like to stay in the comfort zones. I think the main skill and mindset around this ability is to embrace this change and this uncertainty. As Tony Robbins says, the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably handle. Or I think that's the base. Tony well. I know you've been to a super many amount of his events.
Yes.
You need to be able to handle uncertainty in that situation. That change is still a big thing. And where the emotions take part, as you know, the only thing we can control is the thinking. And that really results in the feeling, and that results in the kind of action we take. So I guess you've kind of already answered this next question, so we might go in another direction. But my next question was going to be, what are some of the positive habits and practices you'd recommend to navigate the world change and uncertainty emotionally? So I guess you kind of answered this in a way, but I guess you've got other practices that help you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
positive practices.
Yeah, to me, like, so because before that was like more of a, we'll call it like a fire extinguisher solution. It's like
Yeah.
when fire happens, how do you put it out, right? But in terms of like practices of how to allow our system to become more able to handle discomfort, um, there's a reason why I call myself an emotional fitness trainer, and it's quite literally because I'm always incorporating emotional processing, but also emotional conditioning into my regular fitness routines. So, as an example, if I'm going into the sauna, my outcome for being in the sauna, there's a lot of benefits to being in the sauna. There's detoxification, there's heat shock protein development, there's all these things that happen when we go into a sauna. But for me, I'm not in the sauna for the physiological benefits, although those are nice. I go into the sauna because when we're in a sauna and our heart rate begins to increase gradually over time as our body temperature increases, we're experiencing an increased gradual, or rather a gradual increase in discomfort the longer we stay inside of a sauna. And so for me, I don't know about anybody else inside this space, but sauna is not my best friend. I hate heat. Heat is the worst. I get super panicked in that space. But with that increased level of panic that my body starts to have, where I start to hear things like, you're going to die, you're going to pass out, you're not going to make it out of here, you're not hydrated enough, all these things. To be able to remain calm while inside of that environment, where my outcome in a sauna is to face that discomfort and to be with it, to make friends with it. That's why I'm in there, is one such practice. Another practice is with a cold plunge. So with doing any type of cold therapy. So the difference between, obviously cold plunge and a sauna, cold plunge is a flash intense discomfort. It's like almost painful. And so for me, working in my relationship with discomfort, gradually increasing discomfort in the sauna is one thing. But in the cold plunge, I'm working on my relationship with flash onset intense discomfort. I'm trying to see how fast can I slow down my breathing without doing any special breathing techniques. I'm not trying to do Wim Hof. I'm not trying to do all these types of things. Like, nope, just organically, how quickly can I slow down my breathing? How quickly can I relax every single muscle in my body? Can I, as the controller of this vessel, can I influence my entire system to be as relaxed as humanly possible inside of this incredibly uncomfortable environment? And these are just two examples. So the last thing I'll share is like positive practices to help ourselves be better with discomfort. If you can understand and connect to your emotional system in any physical practice that you already have, then you can begin to condition your system to handle discomfort more effectively. One last example is if I'm going to going for a run. One of the most potent physical exercises, but for me, emotional fitness exercises is sprinting. If I've run 2 miles as an example, the last thing I want to do at the end is sprint. What I want to do is I just want to finish this thing out, get it done, and be complete. But there's something in me that if I commit to sprinting at the very end, like for the last zero point 0.1 miles, I'm going to power through this as hard as I possibly can. There's going to be emotional resistance there. My body is going to say, I don't want to freaking do this. This is a pain. I don't want to go all out. Can't we just take it easy for this last bit? Can't we compromise? Can't we take it slow? This is going to be very uncomfortable. Are you sure we want to do this? And the game in that last zero point 0.1 miles of deciding to sprint and get it done, no matter what, facing that discomfort, facing those voices that are saying, don't sprint, it's too hard, it's too challenging, it's too uncomfortable. This is another way that we can begin to train our emotional system to, again, become friends with discomfort. So in a
Yeah, love
total,
that last one.
yeah, it's all for me. It's all about how do I take my daily practices that I'm already doing and incorporate emotional conditioning into them as much as possible.
Yeah, I love it. That's yeah, I do sauna and cold plunge almost every day. I bought a cold plunge and I have it on the balcony, and Yeah,
Yeah.
I love doing it, and you just give me a different kind of insight into it, because I know it does help me remain emotionally stable. But I never looked at it in that perspective before. I think of it a more physical thing, but yeah, it is that exactly. Especially when you stay in that sauna longer, or doing an extra cold plunge, and you have to sort of resist it, and everything inside you wants to get out. And I love
Yeah.
the running example, because I've experienced that on a treadmill before, where I've done HIIT training. It's kind of like you don't want to carry on going, but you hit this point where you get the endorphins hit, and you kind of feel amazing. And sometimes I've had downloads and spiritual insights in them states where I feel really kind of high, and so it makes a lot of sense that you do those to regulate. Yeah, great. I love those answers. Let's see if I had another question in this section. I think I'll try to stick with one in these ones, but let's have a look. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So, are there any negative habits we should work on stopping that help us with this?
Yeah. So there's one that I actually did a lot of research on recently because I was really curious about it for myself. But one of the things that, if you can, especially in stressful times, is to significantly reduce caffeine consumption. So for caffeine in particular, I was doing like I said, I did a whole deep dive on it because I was noticing I was very dependent on it. Like I could not stop drinking it as much as I wanted to. And it was my mental health, emotional health, everything was going downhill. My focus was going downhill. And so I was like, okay, I need to research this so that I can understand what the long-term consequences are so I can make a decision to stop this. So like it was a part of that type of inquiry. But what I found, the biggest thing that was most surprising to me was the long-term effects of consuming above 80 milligrams of caffeine regularly while stressed and how that impacts the brain. So when we're stressed, we produce more cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. When we drink caffeine, we also produce a little more cortisol. When you drink caffeine while you're stressed, it's like a little bit extra cortisol, just like it creates this compounding effect of more cortisol in the system. And for when people experience a consistent elevated amount of cortisol in their body, what ends up happening to the core key brain regions, the frontal lobe begins to shrink, the hippocampus begins to shrink, and the amygdala expands. So what does that mean? The frontal lobe, our ability to have executive function, if we're consistently drinking caffeine and stressed, or consuming caffeine and stressed, we are going to have less critical thinking skills over time. The hippocampus is responsible for memory. So you're going to recall less in terms of short-term memory, and long-term memory is going to get worse. So we're also not going to remember as much information as we need when it matters most. And then the amygdala expanding, that means that we become more fearful, that the feeling of fear, the feeling of doubt, the feeling of anxiety, all of these things expand more and more over time. And so although we want to drink that caffeine because it gives us that short burst of mental clarity, or it gives us the boost emotion, that dopamine, temporary dopamine buzz. Okay, I'm ready to take on the world. One thing that it also showed was that the way that caffeine works with the dopaminergic system is that it causes your brain to experience a little bit of blindness towards the effort necessary to achieve a goal. So we also will drink caffeine because it reduces the perceived effort that we have to go after something. All those are great benefits. And in terms of the long-term effects towards our ability to process information executively and to remember information, and then to not be as fearful, caffeine plus stress is like the executive brain function killer. So to me, out of all the things I could recommend to begin working on to reduce, to help you become more emotionally available and more emotionally in charge, reduce that caffeine consumption as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I love that. It's something I've done in the past, and from my experience with it, I didn't really notice it when I was having it. It was kind of you're like a drug addict with it. You can't go without it. You feel you can't cope. But then when I did give it up, I had terrible headaches for a couple of days, really
Yeah.
intense. But after that had passed, it was the best thing I ever done. It was kind of like I was
Yeah.
calmer, less anxious. I think I read a book called Caffeine Blues. I don't know if you've seen this one. That goes intensely into like the bad effects of caffeine, and that kind of, when I want to give something up, I usually find something that it tells me all the bad stuff, you know, and it
Yeah,
helps.
yeah,
It
yeah,
helps that
exactly.
way. Yeah.
Exactly. It helps you make the decision.
Yeah. I thought, and I've not really looked back, and I don't. I'll have a decaf coffee every now and again, which like. I still like the taste, and sometimes like my wife Claire,
Sure.
she loves Starbucks and she loves her
Yeah.
caffeine, and I won't try and stop that. But yeah, for me personally, I definitely agree with that. The anxiety,
Yeah.
calmer and less hyper and less anxious is the feeling I got and benefits I saw. And also, I used to have I had slightly high blood pressure, and the doctors had put me on these tablets, and I worked my way off those by giving partly. I think that was due to giving up caffeine because I think the anxiety. This was years ago, but it really helps. I think.
Yeah. Totally.
But yeah, let's move on to. I mean, this is my favourite section. The next one, which is the wealth consciousness. So yeah, in our model here, the wealth rewired. This is section 3. Wealth consciousness is my favourite section. The
Yeah.
whole sort of training was going to be about wealth consciousness, but it's kind of evolved in this wealth revolution, which yeah, is exciting journey to go on. But wealth consciousness itself, I think, yeah, is by far the most important bit. It's the number one key to financial freedom for me, and it's the only thing I have control of. As I said before, I can only control my thoughts, which control the feelings and the actions again. So I think our feelings and emotions play a big part in this. You only have to be in crypto. I mean, I've got clients, I've got myself in crypto, I manage a crypto coaching company, and that's a crash course in feelings around money. If you try
Yeah.
investing in crypto, it's so volatile. You know, people just freak out, and
Yes.
it really just throws the emotions. But it brings up all these stories that people have got around money. So this is the area. If you want to work on anything, this is the area to work on.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, I've got some good questions around this, but for me, beyond dollars, what do you think is the real feeling or emotion, I guess, most people are chasing when they want to achieve this financial freedom, or what that will bring?
Yeah, I think that the two things that they're really chasing is an experience of certainty is like primary number one. And I think what a lot of people would say they wouldn't use the term certainty. I think they would use the term peace or safety, peace of mind. Because people think that, oh, if I have peace of mind, then I'm going to be free. Then I'm going to be able to enjoy the life around me. But really, what
Or maybe
peace
even
of mind?
security is probably a good word. It's security as well. People like to feel secure,
Yeah,
financial
absolutely.
security. Yeah.
Exactly right. But all that really boils down to feeling certain. It's a certainty. And so there's a model that you and I are both very familiar with. It's one of Tony Robbins' models where he talks about the 6 human needs, and he breaks down these 6 things that are important for every human being to have. It's not optional. And the very first one that he talks about is certainty. And so needing to feel certain is something that it's again, it's not optional. We need to feel certain. And so for most people, I think that what they do is they begin to really attach, especially because money in today's world, 500 years ago, this wasn't the case, but now, especially, money equals survival. It is directly connect to our survival instinct. And so if you begin to mess with someone's money or the future of their money or whatever, you're beginning to interact with their survival instinct, and then therefore beginning to interact with their greatest source of certainty. And so to me, I think the biggest thing that they're looking for, that they perceive that they're going to get with money, they're looking for with money, is they're trying to be certain about something because things can feel so uncertain all around them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think, yeah, I feel the only thing that's certain is uncertainty. It's hard to get
Yeah.
that certainty. But do you think also, I'm going to throw a different question out that's arise from that, and I'm glad it's going a bit like that. How was I going to phrase this? So, do you think some people connect it to the self worth as well? Because you can get blocks in another way, can't you, where they can feel shame around having money. I don't know if you've come across this, and I think
Yeah.
that's more of a subconscious belief or subconscious thing that they don't even know that's happening. So you can come across some people, and even me myself, when I've had money, I found that I get rid of it quite quick, and I don't really know
Yeah.
why. And you're probably familiar with the same analogy that we've shared, the financial thermostat, where if
Yeah.
we get too hot with money and we get too much, we get rid of it, and if we get too cold, we find ways to get it. And it's as you say, it's down to that survival instinct, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got any views or insights on that, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
my thoughts.
Absolutely. I mean, like people's experience with money. I think for me personally, there's a lot of, and this will be a bit of a contrarian take, to the money mindset thing. There's a lot of people that you'll hear that'll talk about, what's your belief system around money, or what are your limiting beliefs with money? And then they say, well, if you just rewire your belief system or rewire your limiting belief system around money, then everything's going to be fine. And to me, I've tried for a very long time in my life to rewire my belief system around money, and it did not change my behavior about what I was doing with money. There was a long period of time where no matter how much work I did, no matter how many journaling sessions, no matter how many events, no matter how many coaches, no matter how many mentors, I would still, much like yourself, I had this pattern. And the pattern was go acquire a large sum of money and then spend it all real fast. It was just like it was like big burst of cash, drop it all. Big burst of cash, drop it all. It was insanely exhausting. But for me, what I found is really what helped me in that, and what I find helps others. We can either try to address the limiting beliefs and try to rewire our limiting beliefs and pick at that and pick at that and pick at that, or we can find something that we love more than we love ourselves. We can find something that we desire to build, create, make, give, whatever it would be, that is more important to us than perpetuating our unconscious behaviors. And so to me, when we begin to connect to, like example, if I am really convicted in a desire to want to make a significant contribution to, we'll call it ending homelessness in Austin, Texas, where I live here. And I start to realize that the only way I'm going to be able to do that is if I have a consistent flow of money coming in my account so that I can consistently contribute to causes here in Austin, Texas to get that done. If I am emotionally connected to that at a high enough level, if that really means enough to me to do something like that, eventually I'm going to look at my behavior of make a bunch, dump it all, make a bunch, dump it all. And I'm going to go, that's not acceptable. I can't support homelessness and behave this way with money at the same time. So I'm now going to change. So to me, it's like the big thing is less about how do I rewire my limiting beliefs, and it's more about how do I find that in the world that I love more than I love any limiting belief structure, any belief pattern, any action pattern, so that I can change my beliefs to support that new thing that I care about so much. So that to me is how I look at that in terms of rewiring beliefs and how we look at money with worthiness.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's I think it's as they say, it's good to have a goal, and it's all about the person you become. And as we know, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction, but the law of attraction is really a law of vibration, and what frequency you're vibrating will attract it. So having that amazing goal that is completely, adds value. The kind of side effects of that is gaining wealth anyway. You'll get what you want from it, and I really believe that. I like that. That's great. What else we got on here? So I made a list of questions, but the things are coming up now, so it's great. I love it when it gets organic.
No, we're crushing it. This is perfect.
Yeah, it's good. What about this one then? So, if money is just an external symbol, do you believe our emotions are the real currency that determines whether we feel rich or poor? Because I come across people, they can feel, really we're chasing that feeling, I feel, and if you can feel rich, it's not really the number, it's the feeling you're chasing for money. So, I meet people in all kinds of different wealth levels, and some of them are still unhappy, even with what I consider a vast amount. They're still kind of craving more, they're still not quite made it yet, and they're still searching for something. And I think, it's the feeling they're searching for. They think it's in money, but I'm not quite sure if it is. I think real wealth is having control of your emotions in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's a really good question, just because for me, like personally, like I really struggle with this a lot. I struggle with example, like if I don't have the money that I want in my account, feeling down about myself, or feeling like I'm really blowing it, or feeling like who I am, what I do, like truly feeling poor, like feeling that energy of like I have nothing, and I have nothing, and I can't afford anything, and all that kind of stuff, right? And for me personally, I have found that there were two things that had me feel wealthy that had nothing to do with money. and the feeling of wealth, the feeling of abundance, the feeling of, oh, that's right. The amount of money in my account in this moment has no bearing upon the quality of my life and how good I feel and how connected I feel, and the wealth of wealth of connections, wealth of emotions that I have throughout the day. And so to me, it was two really big things that, for me, I think actually produce an experience of wealth and produce that wealth consciousness that you're talking about here in this section, which is one, is if we are able to give that which we were born to give on planet Earth in this lifetime. I believe that every soul, every human being has something that they were meant to give the world. And I believe that for every second that that's not being given, it's extraordinarily uncomfortable and painful. That the person feels this knowing that I could be giving XYZ. There's something more for me to do in this lifetime. And if they are giving that, and it's been in moments where I have been doing what I've been meant to do, which is example, like I'll be the last event that I ran, I was on stage for 30 plus hours. It's like I'm on stage talking and doing my thing for that much time, but I never felt more alive in my life. Like being able to like actually like do the thing I'm here to do at the highest level. It was extraordinary. It was exceptional. So to me, like when I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I'm not bullshitting myself, but I'm really doing the work I'm here to do, that I was born to do, I feel unbelievably wealthy. The second is in the quality of community. So I've noticed that when I was alone or I wasn't nurturing really good friendships and holding the standard of very high quality friendships in my life, I always felt poor. I always felt like I didn't have enough. I always felt like there was something missing. But
Mm-hmm.
in combination, when I was prioritizing doing what I was supposed to do in the world, and also really nurturing community, the people that I really want, my soul family, the people I really want around me in my life, that we have fantastic conversations, fantastic experiences, then the experience of wealth became normal, became natural. So to me, yes, I believe that feeling wealthy, I actually believe it has nothing to do with money. I think it has everything to do with the everyday stuff that allows us to feel filled up as human beings. And when we are feeling that, then the experience, I believe at that point, is a feeling of wealth.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I love that answer again. Yeah, I think I always ask people when we're talking about, especially in crypto, and they're making goals, like almost preparing them for that. You know, if they do make the wealth, it's like, what would you do if you wake up
Yeah.
tomorrow and you had whatever your financial freedom is? What would you be doing then? Because most people go straight, I can rest on the beach after all that stuff. You know, I go on holiday, I buy all these things, but after that, you know, you're still going to seek a purpose. You're still going to want to give back. You know, we're talking about Tony Robbins again. The last two non-ego needs are growth and contribution, and I think that's what we all want long term, beyond the money. Yeah, and that's the last section actually of this framework, and yeah, I really believe that. Yeah, I love those
Yeah.
answers. I think you might have kind of already answered this one. The next one was going to be, what does the term to have wealth consciousness mean to you? But I think you've answered that. I kind of answered that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, I'm going to move on to the next section. I'll just pull the slide up. So this one's kind of the framework of the main framework, or the action steps in the Wealth Rewired workshop, and the training program we're building out. And this is called the Financial Freedom Formula. And this is really the action side to it. So once you get your thoughts and your feelings right, it's time. Nothing happens without taking the action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really. I've met people that have kind of fortunes as well, which seem like fortunes to me, and they're not happy still. And this one leads back again, like you say, to the purpose. And other than, I do meet others as well that kind of live this lie where they're not doing the purpose and they kind of want to do it, and they're doing this kind of the meditating and law of attraction stuff, and they're saying, I'm spiritual, I'm happy anyway. But they're really deep down craving a better life, and that's probably me in the past as well, and still me now sometimes. It's like a pretending, it's like I think, one of our mentors called it we had, what was it? There was the achiever and the kumbaya.
Yeah.
You go into this kind of kumbaya mode where you feel like you're okay, but actually deep down inside you're feeling like, no, there's something more. And that's down to not taking enough action, in my personal experience. When I'm not taking action, I feel that way. I kind of say I'm okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
I think many people are familiar with the strategies of making money. It's really quite simple. It's like exercise. Eat less and do the exercise. And the strategy of making wealth is spend more than you earn and invest the rest. It's really quite simple.
Yeah.
But where the emotions come in, where I found, and this is in my journey with it, is these blocks are subconscious. They are really subconscious, and that's the difficult part to overcome. I think that's got a lot to do with state, and I think really the next question is going in the lines of, some people sabotage the financial success without realising it. And do you think that's caused by these buried emotions? Like the thermostat, if I explain that analogy, an air conditioning unit stays at a nice regular temperature and it warms up, when it's getting too cold, and cools the room down when it's getting too hot. And we kind of do that financially, subconsciously sometimes. We get a bunch of money and we kind of freak out a little bit and think, what should I do with it? And we don't really know what to do. But then if we go for a season of not having enough money, we kind of get down, knuckle down, do marketing or work harder in the jobs. But there's always this kind of thermostat level where we stay at. And to reach the next levels, you've got to kind of break through. And I think that's got everything to do with emotions around money. But it's hard to tap into that. I don't know if you've got any insights on that. It's not really a question, but it's just my insights.
Yeah.
That's where I feel people who need help, in the areas where I've explored with people around money.
Yeah. It's, for me, that the big thing that's necessary there is just an increased awareness that of the emotional system. Again, the emotional system, it's kind of like, well, here, let's do this. It's increased awareness and increased intention. So as an example, if I get a cue in my body that is a cue for anxiety and stress, and I have built up an unconscious habit in my life that when I feel anxious and stressed, I stuff my face with food.
Me too.
So the cue comes up, and I look to my left, and I'm like, look at that glazed donut. That looks absolutely fantastic. And I go over there and I eat the donut, and I do it completely unconsciously. There's no knowledge that I'm doing it for this reason. If you were to ask me to my face, I would say, no, I'm eating it because I want it. But little do I know that I'm unaware that actually I just had a conversation about finances with somebody where they started talking about the markets potentially crashing and going to shit, and how inflation is taking away all of our money and all these things. And I got nervous. And I'm like, oh, I need a fucking donut. And then I eat my donut. Like, that's a challenge with awareness. So number one is the awareness of being like, whoa, hang on. I just had a conversation that has me super anxious. And why am I wanting to eat this donut? Oh my God. I eat food to comfort myself with my anxiety and stress? No way. So that's awareness is number one. But then the second thing is intention. So if I eat that donut in that situation and I have no intention, I just eat it. Well, then I'm perpetuating the behavior of being unconscious and sabotaging, etc. But if I go to that same donut and I look at it and I say, I want to powerfully choose this donut. Instead of me eating it unconsciously, I would like to instead re-experience my early childhood, because I used to eat these all the time. And I would like to experience the same magic and joy that I did as a kid with a bite out of this donut. And then I take a bite of the donut. I've completely repatterned and changed my relationship to that thing. And when it comes to finances, it's the same thing. It's when we begin to notice, we get a reaction in our system. We hear, oh my God, everything's falling apart. You got these three buckets. You have the first people who want to put their head in the sand, where it's like, I'm going to pretend it's not happening. La, 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 la. It's those people. And the second bucket is the people who are going to prepare for the worst. So they're going to take everything out, keep everything in cash, and stuff it under a mattress. That's the worst thing they could do. And you have the third bucket, which is people who will frantically react by investing in coins that don't make any sense, They're going to try to do a pump and dump. They're trying to get to whatever the next fancy crypto thing is. Like, oh, let's hop on the bandwagon of this fancy thing, and then hop in, whatever it is, right? And then they end up buying in too late and selling too, or buying in too late and selling too late, and it's a whole problem. And it's like all that together. That's all the same thing as that donut I talked about earlier. They're getting cues inside of their body that they're then going to these things with complete unconsciousness. And so if we
Yeah.
can have awareness like, oh, I feel a certain way, but then set an intention with our action, it's like I want to do something. I want to example, I hear this financial information, I get this massive emotional experience in my body. Okay, I'm stressed and anxious. What do I want to do? I want to frantically go get a crypto wallet and go put $100 or 2 grand in Bitcoin because I heard that was a really good strategy. Because whatever, and then it crashes 20% the next day, and we freak out even more, and then we do something else that's really sporadic, or we go, okay, I'm noticing that I'm anxious, and I want right now to just go buy a bunch of Bitcoin right now without any strategy, without any thought. What if I decided I'm going to engage with the crypto market, but I'm going to do it with intention and intelligence? Maybe I should go research people in the industry who seem to know what they're talking about and have experience with the crypto markets for the past 5 years, i.e., Luke, and or five plus years. You've been in this for a long time, yeah?
Yeah. Over 10. Yeah. Yeah. A long
Over
time.
10 years, yeah. A
Yeah.
decade of experience with this, right? So it's like you've been doing this for a decade. It's like, so I could take that cue in my body, and instead of blindly throwing my money into Bitcoin because, oh, that must be the right move, I instead go, no, let me find someone who's been doing this for a decade and intentionalize a strategy for deployment. That seems better. So you can take the same cue and intentionalize it and transmute it into something way more effective. So to me, it's awareness and intention are the two things to set with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, what I'm hearing is, firstly, you've got to be awake to these emotions. Otherwise, you're just going to, kind of one of them's just a form of running away. I feel stressed. I don't know what to do. I'll go to my numbing habit, and whether it's eating, or some people go to alcohol, some people go to drugs, some people go on holiday. There's all forms of running away from your problems, and I think that's the first step. So you've got to recognise that you're actually doing that, and I guess, have the courage to step up to it and do something about it with intention, I guess, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, once you've got the intention of making it change, yeah, feel into it and take the right action steps. So, yeah, the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions again.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. Next question, let's have a look. So is there a way, do you use any sort of techniques or anything like that to sort of process emotions around past events around money? Because people do ask me for this. They always say, "Oh, it's from a childhood and I grew up in." Is that something? I hear this a lot where people say, "I always grew up in a poverty," and I did. That you grew up in a home where there's not much money. These kind of things affect you? Like,
Yeah.
is the techniques that you teach on that, or do you recommend that onto other people?
Yeah.
Kind of past trauma and things like that you need to process. Is that something you teach?
Yeah. Yeah. So to
Yeah.
me, again, I take a contrarian approach to this. So for some context, I've attended over 70 plus personal development events. I've spent over $250,000 in investment in myself in different modalities, whether it's breath work, somatics, energy work, all the things, right? So like processing trauma was something that I wanted to become an expert in. And specifically, not just processing trauma, but then being able to rewrite beliefs permanently. It's like if I want to grow, I want to expand, then I want to be able to permanently change my vessel such that I can go and make new decisions and do new things and achieve new heights in life. And what I found that all of the tools and strategies of processing emotions, they're helpful, but to me, they none of them were nearly as effective as taking action that directly opposes the limiting beliefs or the limiting structures. So, as an example, when there was a time where I really believed that I needed to make content all the time. So money was low. There was no money in the account whatsoever. and I had no runway left. I have rent that's going to be coming out in 20 days, and I have no money to pay rent. I'm hardly have enough to be able to pay groceries. That means, in my mind at the time, it was I need to go make as much content on social media as possible. So I, in a panicked fashion, totally fearful, I'm noticing I'm super panicked. I get into my car with my laptop and everything, and my intention was to race to a coffee shop, drink a ton of coffee, and write, a week or a month's worth of content. Which, of course, all that content would have been angry and frustrated because that would have been the energy I was in anyway. But I get in the car and I just take a minute and I realize, oh man, my heart rate is going insanely fast. And I am believing that I need to write content now. Why? What is the belief underneath this behavior that is leading to my heart rate going out of my freaking chest and me wanting to race over to a coffee shop to write as much content as I possibly can, as short a period of time as I can? And I realized the belief underneath all that was I'm running out of time. And I was like, okay, if the belief that's causing this entire thing to happen right now is I'm running out of time, what would be something that I could do with my time right now that could completely call BS on that limiting belief? I was like, well, right now, if I went to the local juice spot down the road, I got my favorite juice and I drove myself to the forest preserve and I walked barefoot in the woods for 4 hours straight, or as long as I effing wanted to, that would show right to my face that I'm not running out of time. Because if I go do that and I don't die, then I have all the time in the world.
Mm.
So I did that. Instead of going and frantically running content, I went and did this other thing I wanted to do instead. And what came after that was honestly an insane amount of liberation. I was like, oh my gosh. So for me, when it comes to money, I honestly don't believe in like processing the emotions as much as I believe in assessing what is the belief that I have about money and how can I take action, do something, have a conversation that would prove that belief completely wrong. That would just show my body immediately that's not real. So to me, that's the strategy that I use. I try to identify the belief and then take action that immediately naysays the belief, so that my nervous system can be physically changed by the environment that I'm in.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm taking insights from that. I'm thinking, yeah, because what I'm hearing is, and I kind of sometimes do this in situations where I know I need to change my state, and I do find that super effective. Because if I do any action, I'm going to take out of fear and anxiety. It's not going to be a good action. I'm not going to get good results. I know I need to get in a good state. But I've not really thought of it in that way before, where gone that deep and said what's the underlying belief, and then go in complete contrast against that. Yeah, I love that. I'll try that out. Thanks
Yeah,
for that.
it's a good one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. I don't think I've got any more questions on that area. But I mean, the final area of this model is what I call when we go beyond financial freedom. So what I mean by that is, I have some personal relationships with many multimillionaires who say, gaining wealth does not solve all your problems. And in some cases, you're going to create more. There are probably more quality problems, but it doesn't really solve everything. I think we've touched on this already, but I guess once achieving financial freedom, how can someone find fulfillment? And I guess I think we've covered this, but we can touch on it again. And one of the ways I always do it is I just commonly ask people, what would you do tomorrow if you had that financial freedom after you've done all the things? Because it's like anything, isn't it? You get a new car and you get used to it. Even if you've got financial freedom, as amazing as that feels, that security that you feel, you'll probably find, and everybody says this when they've got it, and that was my experience in making some money on crypto, it soon normalises. You're soon back to the same person as you was, and the same problems are still there. You can't really fix them with money. So I guess, the question is, once achieving financial freedom, how can someone then find fulfillment?
Yeah, I really believe there's only one answer to that question, and that is to live a life that is in alignment with who you truly are, why you're here, and how you're meant to bring that to the world in pursuit of your total victory in life. To me, like at the end of the day, um, that I believe that's it. It's like because I don't think I know in the financial space a big like people really focus on wanting to have financial abundance, and this might be the wrong take for me to have on a in a financial space, but I believe that at the end of the day, when we're all on our deathbeds, none of us are going to be sitting there counting how much money we made. I personally believe what we're going to be doing is we're going to be evaluating the condition of our heart and the conditions of the hearts of those around us. And we'll realize in that moment if we lived in alignment with who we are, why we're here, how we're meant to bring it to the world, and if we pursued our total victory, and if we brought that to everyone that we loved around us. And I believe there's a part of our heart, our soul, that when that's being pursued at the highest level, when that's getting after, when we do that, we then achieve that happiness and that fulfillment. There's a beautiful quote by Tony Robbins where he says, progress equals happiness. The beautiful part is that I believe that when we are living a life in alignment with who we are, why we're here, how we're meant to bring it to the world in pursuit of our total victory, all we have to do is be in pursuit of that. And then all of a sudden, as long as we're making progress, as long as we're making another step, our bodies are like, this is awesome. I love this. I don't care how little money I have or how much money I have. So to me, especially the beautiful part is that if you do have absolute financial freedom, the fun part is that you get to take advantage of the best part about money, which is that it's an amplifier of your will. And so if there's an outcome that you wish to see in the world, if there's a change you wish to see in the world, someone with millions of dollars or billions of dollars has the legitimate ability to bring that will, that change into existence with more resource and more energy than if someone who has absolutely nothing. So the best part is that if you have that type of wealth, your ability to create massive change in a shorter period of time exponentially higher. So to me, the biggest thing I would say to someone in that situation is get after it, man. You got some work to do.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's true, and you can't take it with you. And anything beyond living the lifestyle you want to live authentically and consciously, the rest of it's just a stewardship in helping others, I think, and helping add value to the world after that. And that's what I'd love to teach on this. And I do think your answer is in line with this wealth consciousness. It's not. I'm trying to help people understand and learning myself that wealth is not just about money. There's so many different areas to life that are wealth. Your health, including your mental and your emotional health, your relationships, probably far more important than wealth itself. But it's this component that I think holds a lot of people back. And the more people understand it's just not about that, the more I can add value, I guess, out there. So, yeah, no, great answers. Really enjoyed this. And what's great as well, it went, no planning on time. It's lasted exactly an hour, hours to the minute as it does if you just let it go. I love that. So I think, to close up, so many insights today, and massive thank you for coming on. And it was great. I enjoyed your input and your insights. But before we close, do you want to share with anybody who's watching how they can find your work, connect with your access your services, I guess?
The best way that someone can honestly get a hold of me right now is through Instagram. So my handle it's just my last name, so it's at Muellegger, Muellegger. Is the best way to reach out to me. My content's on there. I'll post events that I'm running on there, and honestly, I'm at a place, thankfully, right now in my own journey where I can respond to DMs. So if someone wants to reach out to me and they want to ask questions, they want to know more about, what I do or how the work that I'm talking about could help them, I'm always down for a conversation, always down to support any way that I can.
Great. Yeah, I'll post the links in the channel when it goes up. So that'd be great. And for anybody else who's interested in these subjects or wants to learn more about the wealth revolution, the financial freedom framework, or even crypto, there's a free link to the workshop where you can answer a few questions. And we're running these workshops quite often, so just get on the site and on the YouTube channel and fill out the form, and I'd love to have you on that as well. So I think we'll finish up there. Amazing having you on, and maybe see you soon on the next one.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Thanks.